All right, so it's been about 8 months now since I started eBay dropshipping. And I'm at the point in the business now where I'm consistently making a couple grand profit every single month. And after falling for all the stupid little mistakes, I feel like I found the best way to actually go about the business. Which is why in this video, I'm gonna go over exactly what I would do if I had to start from zero in today's market. And not only that, but I'll go over a couple of specific things that I would have changed about my process up to this 8-month mark. All right, so the question is, what's that first step? And as simple as it sounds, it's gonna be to just make that first eBay account. I see a lot of people who initially get into business focusing on things that just don't matter. And listen, I've fallen victim to this exact same thing in previous ventures. But when first starting out, don't focus on creating the LLC or worrying about taxes. Your number one priority is creating cash flow. Because unless you're making money, there's no risk to mitigate and there's no money to pay taxes on. A lot of people who are getting into business focus on LLC and taxes, and they do so much to where they burn themselves out before actually starting the business and they never end up making money. So number one, create your first eBay account. All right, so the second step is going to be finding your information, right? How are you gonna actually learn about the business model? How are you gonna learn what next steps to take? And there isn't one direct answer to this, right? There's multiple different forms of obtaining your information. One being YouTube, like you're watching now. But one thing I'll tell you not to do is to sit on YouTube and watch all these videos without actually taking action. Similar to the previous step where I'm saying don't waste your time looking into, creating an LLC or worrying about taxes before actually starting. Same thing goes with watching YouTube videos, right? I see a lot of people consuming content and never actually putting it into action, which leads to them thinking that they're actually working by watching YouTube videos, which is far from the truth. And similar to the previous step, they end up burning out before actually beginning the business. So back to the point of the step of actually gaining your information, the way I would do it myself, which is pretty much what I did. Learn from people who are already in the business and already making money from what you are trying to do. Now there's a couple different ways of doing this, right? Joining groups and reaching out to people, paying for mentorship. What I personally did was join Ecom Sniper, which is a software, but it also came with, a group chat, which from there I was able to reach out to people directly, hop on calls with people. And from there I was able to actually learn from people who are already making money in the business that I was trying to get into. And I'll be honest, that experience alone changed my perspective on business as a whole. You're going through the exact same process that they did, just quicker because you already know directly from them what worked and what didn't, right? So you're not gonna make the exact same mistakes that they did. And the reason this is so valuable is because, what's the other option, right? Doing it all by yourself, making the exact same mistakes that you could have avoided just by reaching out to people who already went through the same process. The best thing you can do is to simply work with people who are already in the position that you're striving to be in, or at least a couple steps closer than you are currently. And whether you're gonna pay for this information or you're gonna reach out to people for free, that's not what matters. The point is, it's gonna be the best return on whether it's your money or your time. So step number two, whether you are just watching YouTube videos or you're gonna reach out to people directly, put in action, right? Don't burn yourself out by watching, hundreds of videos on the business model prior to actually starting it, because you're tricking your mind into thinking that you're working. You're not working at all. All right, so moving on, step number three is going to be warming up and priming your eBay and Amazon accounts. So unlike step number two, where people aren't taking action and watching YouTube videos, in step number three, people get too excited, and after getting that first sale from sniping, they end up launching hundreds or even thousands of listings too soon. And what this does is put you at risk for your account being suspended, which is just counterproductive. While it's really tempting knowing that 10,000 listings equals $1,500 a month, but like I said previously, it's counterproductive. The whole game of eBay dropshipping is about mitigating risk. Whether this means warming up your eBay account or scaling sideways rather than vertically, eBay dropshipping is a long-term game. If you were to list 5,000 listings your first month, as opposed to pacing yourself and only listing 1,500 or 2,000, although you might make an extra couple $100, if it means you're gonna get suspended within your first 1 or 2 months, then 5, 6, 7 months down the line, pacing yourself and not getting suspended would mean that you made thousands of dollars more. So although it's tempting to just blast thousands of listings, step number three is going to be pacing yourself and warming up your eBay and Amazon accounts. All right, so step number four is going to be finding a VA. And not just finding a VA, but doing it sooner than later. And let me explain, right? Depending on what your goal is in this business, whether you're just trying to make an extra $3,000 a month, doing it on the side, or if you're trying to actually scale it into multi-five figures like myself, if you're aiming for bigger numbers, you're gonna need a VA. And looking for your VA sooner than later is only gonna help you. Now, what I mean by this is I always see people who put it off to the side, right? They say they're gonna find their VA later. Then once they hit that 3 to 5 account mark and they don't have their VA, things start to get awkward. Because most of the time, whenever you're at that 3 to 5 account mark and they're not fully built, you're not full-time in eBay. So you're still trying to accumulate time to actually run the business. But at that 3 to 5 account mark, it starts to get awkward because it starts taking up a lot of your time. It's not just order fulfillment alone, but it's also customer service. So instead of putting it on the back burner, Once you build that first account, you get it to 10,000 listings, you learn everything that you need to know about eBay dropshipping, whether the VA you're looking for is going to be pre-qualified or you need to train them. That's the time to do it. Because as the business grows, your VAs grow, they learn what they need to know. So then long term, the business is just gonna run way more smoothly. Now, how to actually find your VA, there's a ton of different options. I can't really tell you myself. My scenario is a little bit different. My VA actually reached out to me through my YouTube. And then from there, we work things out. But the point of this step is to say, do it sooner than later, rather than waiting for things to get uncomfortable. All right, so the fifth and final step that I'm gonna be going over today is prepping a plan to scale. Now, you need to look at your situation and weigh your options. So when we're talking about scaling eBay dropshipping, we're talking about sideways. It's important to mitigate risk in this business, and there's primarily two different ways to do this. You either go the agency path, where you manage clients' accounts and take a large percentage of their profit, or you create an LLC, which is gonna allow you to make 5 accounts under your own name, which each path has its own pros and cons. The agency model, which is quicker, also requires zero money up front, while the perks of opening up an LLC and creating accounts under your own name is A, it's under your own name, you don't need to work with anyone else, and you're gonna earn 100% of the profit. Now, what I'd recommend is based on your situation. For example, when I started, I was 17 years old, which meant I couldn't actually have an eBay account under my name. So unintentionally, I started in the agency model without knowing. My first account was under my mom's name, and my second one under a friend. The pro to the agency model is the fact that each client is gonna have their own house with their own IP and their own identity, which highlights the main con of opening up your LLC and doing it on your own, which is the cost. Which, after being in the business for a while, this isn't something that matters whatsoever. But whenever you're creating the LLC, that itself costs money, and then the main cost is gonna be the static IPs, which is what's gonna allow you to have 5 different IP addresses for each account. Going further into my point, you're also gonna need 5 different checking accounts. And the reason I bring this up is there's no one correct way to do it. The agency model is price effective and it's super fast, while creating the accounts under your own name allows you to be more hands-on and you get all the profit. So while there's no one correct way to do it, I'd suggest up front, if you're in a similar situation as myself, to reach out and work with a couple clients, build your cash flow, and then from there, scale under your name. And long term, the pro of the agency model is you build a relationship with a client, and then from there, what you're gonna do under your name, you can do under theirs. And what I mean by this is, if you're opening up LLC to create 5 accounts under your name, you're gonna be able to do the same under theirs. So very quickly, those 3 accounts with the 3 clients that you obtained could turn into 15. So there's definitely pros and cons to each path. So the point of this last step is you need to look at your situation and weigh your options. Like I continue to repeat, there's no one correct answer, but you wanna set yourself up so that scaling is super timeless and easy. All right, so before I close out on this video, I just wanna recap really quickly everything that I've gone over. Step number 1, when I'm talking about making an account, the part to emphasize is to just start. I use the example of people looking into LLCs and taxes as opposed to just getting started on what's actually gonna make you money. And similarly, in part number 2, when I'm talking about how you're gonna get your information, don't trick yourself into thinking that you're working by watching YouTube videos. Number 1 and 2 kind of coincide, but what's important in business in general is just action. But point number 3, whenever we're talking about warming up our accounts and pacing ourselves, you wanna understand that eBay dropshipping is all about mitigating risk. And a lot of that stems from account creation. So take your time, warm up your accounts, and you're gonna make a lot more money in the long run. Step number 4 was find a VA. This is particularly important if you're trying to scale this business into larger numbers. Just make sure you're doing it sooner than later. And the last and final part was looking at your situation and prepping how you're gonna actually scale the business if you have larger numbers in mind. Take advantage of the agency model and build a solid list of potential clients. But then after you build out your first, 1 or 2 stores and you're consistently making a couple $1,000s a month, you'll be able to continue the process and scale pretty seamlessly. All right, so moving on, step number 3 is going to be warming up and priming your eBay and Amazon accounts. All right, so that's exactly how I would attack the eBay dropshipping space if I were to start from 0 today. If you guys have any questions about what I went over today or eBay dropshipping in general, you guys can comment down below. I'll make sure to get back to you guys there. Or if you guys are wanting to reach out to me directly, I have that first link in the description. You guys can book a call. And last but not least, there's gonna be a link to my Discord, which similar to step number 2, you're gonna be able to find a lot of like-minded people who are gonna be able to help you and are already in the business. If there's anything that you guys want me to cover in future videos, you guys go ahead and let me know. But yeah, other than that, you guys stay safe.